Welcome back to Morning Live. Before we took the break, it was all about adoption laws in this country. David Ohenga, a lawyer, is in studio. Will be telling us about the process. If you're interested in adopting, and of course it's something not so complicated, not so sophisticated, but you, as a citizen of Kenya, you are allowed to adopt. Karibu sana Bwana Ohenga.
Thank you for having me.
Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Now, many Kenyans are interested in adopting, whether you have a kid or not. Some people just want to brighten a child's future and, of course, make this child be part of their journey as a family. Now, when you think of adoption, the first step you do, of course, you've identified this child. You cannot start the process before identifying the child.
Yes.
Now, you've already identified the child and you want to start the process from scratch. What do you start?
Actually, when you talk about starting the process from scratch, the process of identifying the child
a process also.
is also
but you know also, there's another problem here. Identification is very important because you cannot just take anyone.
True.
There's some traits you've seen and potential maybe you've seen, that's why you're interested. Eh?
Yes.
So, of course, it's a process, but no, you can't just be told, okay, you just come start the process, and of course, just from nowhere, they'll give you the kid. Yeah. So, the process of identifying, how do you start now with that?
What usually happens is that you have to attach yourself to an adoption society. Okay. There are so many here in the country. Okay. You walk up to an adoption society and you inform them of your intention to adopt. They will actually facilitate you to interact with the number of children, so that whoever you feel like is more compatible to adopt, you will take up and start the process. Usually the adoption societies will help and facilitate that process. They will place the child that you have identified with you. Of course, after conducting their due diligence and knowing where you stay, what are your abilities, what are the capabilities in terms of you being able to provide for the child. They will place the child with you at least for a minimum of 3 months. Wow. A minimum of 3 months. And during these 3 months, they will continue, paying visits and conducting assessments and doing reports. And after that now, you now commence the process of adoption in court. Yes. So you will apply to court. Of course, we all know that there's a Children's Act in place, Cap 8 of 2001, and also what we call the Hague Adoption Convention, which Kenya is a signatory to. Sure. That also comes into play, especially when it is what we refer to as international adoptions. When you have a foreigner wants to adopt a child here in Kenya, that also comes into place. So you commence the process in court. There are a number of requirements. You will need probably to get consent if, for example, the father or one of the parents or the parents of the child are still alive. You need to get their consent. If there's a guardian who's been there, you also need to get their consent to allow you to adopt. Then after that, I think you go to court, and the process usually there, a hearing is conducted. By way of by hearing, I just mean basically they will assess your capabilities. What can you do for the child, what is the environment the child is going into, is the best interest of the child being taken care of through that adoption process. Sure. And then once the court is satisfied, then an order will be made and it's entered into what we call the Adoption Register of Kenya. Yes.
Wow, interesting.
Yes.
Now, most people think only adopted children are from maybe they're orphans, they're not privileged, maybe they are in an orphanage of some sort. But what do you think about adopting and the kid has both parents?
Actually, slowly it's becoming the in thing nowadays. Parents who feel like they are not capable of giving their best to the child, they will tend to put up the child up for adoption. It is happening. I've seen situations, 1 or 2, where parents actually who are alive, but because of certain advantages that the adoption will provide the child, they would let the child go. But in the meantime, they still maintain some sort of relationship. But it's strategically just to propel the child into a better future. Yes, that one is happening. Yes.
All right. Yeah. And it sounds complicated because now when this child has been raised by these other parents for quite some time, he or she is used to them, with the environment, and of course now being introduced to a new environment, and also in the back of his or her mind knows I'm being taken in for adoption. Yeah, it's psychological, kind of affects, any change affects a person. So have you ever had any scenarios where adoption is done successfully, the transfer, the signatories, everything is done, then after years they want the kid back.
Yes, I've seen that happen, but it is one of those processes that is become, it's irreversible. Let me put it that way. And it is through the court process. I don't think I've seen anything like that happen. But parents and the person who was adopted can work on an arrangement where the child still relates to the parents and relates to them as, you know, the basic provider of care and love.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. As a parent, I know sometimes it really sounds kind of very complicated, because now when someone wakes up and just decides to give out, of course, the muscle to maybe take care of this kid is not really consistent. But do you feel like that's too much for the kid? Because it's too much for the kid.
It is too much for the kid, but sometimes you realize when you're a parent, your assessment of what is best for the child, especially at that point where they're not able to fend for themselves, is what really determines what you will do next. So it might be seen to be unfair on the part of the child, but the parents will always have reasons. And as long as you're under their care and control, they will definitely consider their reasons to be the best for you. You know, yes.
We've seen so many people. It's such a generic trend where people go to orphanages and identify this kid. But you see, when you talk about fee, maybe roughly how much is involved, or just a court process?
It is just a court process.
Nothing.
No, nothing more. Nothing more. It's just a court process. Actually, the main thing that usually happens with that process, because, you know, adoption is one of those things which is considered to be noble, you know, kind of, especially if someone comes up and is like, I want to take that child and take care of them, rather than leave that child to the vagaries of the world.
Sure.
It is a process that is usually looked at, you know what, let's facilitate this as much as we can through the court processes, through the adoption agencies, societies, and also through the social workers who, you know, would visit and do reports and everything. They try to make that process as smooth as possible. It is not a costly affair, but at the end of the day, what happens usually is the whole system works towards ensuring that the best interest of that child who is disadvantaged at that point is taken care of.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Well, now the progress of this child, as much as you said, there's a kind of a grace period of 3 months. These people are given time to now be assessed, and bonding and everything.
Yes.
Now, if a child doesn't feel to be in that environment, what happens here? They've signed everything. See, at the end of the day, this person needs to be comfortable, but the child wants to go back to the parents. How does that now happen?
Yeah, that happens. And actually, because at the end of the day, depending especially on the age of the child, if a child, let's say, is 14 years old or 10, growing up, you know, they are able to comprehend and understand what they are getting into. So if they're in that period of the 3 months and they're finding it a little bit difficult to adopt or even bond with the parents, the parents to be, then depending on how developed they are, whatever opinion they voice can be considered to be something, and also will determine whether the adoption will go on or not.
All right.
Yes.
A very interesting thing that happened the other day. The Kenyan adoption agencies are fighting ban on inter-country adoptions.
Yes.
Now, like Kenya, you just have to adopt a kid from Kenya. That was the norm. But you see now, the agencies are fighting the inter-country adoptions, whereby now you can adopt from Uganda, Tanzania, any other country in the world you want. Why is it a problem that maybe some agencies feel like it's actually the government feels like it's not good to adopt maybe someone from outside the country? Is it so much process? Because now people are wondering, why is this actually a ban?
Well, my view on that is simple. The socioeconomic status of people will determine sometimes whether they adopt or not. And you as an individual will determine to come from maybe Uganda or Tanzania or Europe or wherever to come and adopt from here. For whatever reasons you may have. Some just say it's the love of Kenyans. You know, we love Kenyans and we want to come and adopt. So to try and restrict that also, at the end of the day, actually, it ends up restricting the beneficial interest that will be transferred to an individual from the global perspective or the pool of adopters across the world. So I think to try and restrict that and make it look like you can only adopt from within To me, I think it beats the whole purpose of trying to ensure that these children get the best that they can.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Just the other day, there was a headline on one of our dailies that how fake child adoption syndicate steals babies from desperate moms.
Yes.
Now, child adoption syndicate. This is very strange because now a mother just realizes the son or the daughter is not even there. So, whereby a situation whereby now they have to make some investigations and follow-ups for this parent to reunite with the kid. Now, when you see these syndicates of, for example, fake child adoption syndicates, do you feel like it also needs to be regulated? Because when kids are stolen from you as a parent, it's not very fair. But do you think now this child adoption laws and everything should be regulated also? Because we're finding people taking advantage.
Yeah, it is true, but just like any other system, creative people will always find loopholes.
Okay.
It is just a question of also we continue to reflect on the laws and amend them accordingly as we go forward, so that we seal on these loopholes that occur. What you're calling the child adoption syndicates, it's a very unfortunate thing, because to me, from where I see it, adoption is one of the most clearer processes you can ever undertake. It's this, it's that, and if you follow that process, you're good to go. But most people will get into those syndicates for purposes of making money. It's just for purposes of selfish interests, but not necessarily the interest of the child.
Now, let's talk about the well-being of this child. As much as there are follow-ups and all those things that accompany this child in a new home, we've mentioned when the child wants to go back, it's a new case, of course, totally different ball game. But Bwana Wakili, when you talk about the conscience of this child, knowing that, hey, I'm in this household, but I know my position here. I've been adopted. These are not my original parents. The well-being, you know what I mean? The psychological just well-being, knowing that indeed, can I do this thing because these are not my parents? And maybe you've gone to that house and found the real kids who belong there. Biological kids are there. And you're the kind of an alien inside there.
Two things. First of all, you know, most of the children who are adopted are children who are younger. Let's say 10, 14 years, you know, going down to almost 2 months. Those are most of the children who are adopted are within that age bracket. So what would happen, and the effect of time, is that the longer you stay with someone, the more comfortable you become in that environment, the more you bond with that person, the more you come to understand what is expected of you. And at the end of the day, what happens, just basically because of the effect of time, and this is the second point I'm trying to put across, is that you will be more comfortable in that environment. It doesn't rule out the fact that, for example, you know who your parents are. It doesn't. And your conscience will always go back to that. But at the end of the day, your position that you're in at that point, you're just comfortable. You know these people are providing for you. This is the best for you can get. And you will just find yourself mellowing into whatever they're doing for you. It is a mindset thing. It is a mindset thing, and the effect of time will always take will always put you in the right place.
So what if a parent doesn't feels like they made a mistake in adopting a kid? Can this now be something, or it's reversible?
I say by and large it is an irreversible process, but that's why I'm saying most of the people, what they do, especially the people who adopt and they know the parents of the children, they will not sever that link. They will keep the child in contact with the parent, and also just make sure that their role is to provide the best for this child, not in the environment that the parents are in, but they will also make sure that the child continues to interact with the parents and knows that, you know, those are my parents and these people are just helping me better my life.
Now, back to the syndicate. Just a quote here. The cartels also work with particular children's homes, judges and lawyers to sanitize the trade detectives, and I believe have certain government officials who assist the syndicate to commercialize the adoption process. I'll repeat. The cartels also work with particular children's homes, judges and lawyers to sanitize all those legal processes. Now, as a lawyer, maybe have you ever heard about any syndicate where, of course, it's so difficult to hear about this, but still, when lawyers are used to sanitize these processes also, and at the end of the day, they're given something, do you feel, of course, you have your code of ethics, you have to operate in a given way, but the legal family is now flooded. There's so much happening.
Yes.
Every year, someone is actually just taken through graduation, KSL comes in, and of course, goes through the process, admitted in the bar, and that's it. And the business is kind of getting now tighter and tighter. Yeah. Now, sometimes there are loopholes in the legal departments. What do you think about this?
Yeah, the loopholes, like I said again, creative minds will always create those loopholes. We'll find them, and they will exploit them.
Okay.
The question of how these systems are being abused, through corruption,
okay,
and many other ways. I think, like I said again, it's just for selfish individual interests.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with the interests of the child.
Okay.
It is a very unfortunate situation we find ourselves in, and probably the law to that extent needs to be reviewed and loopholes sealed and everything. But it is an unfortunate thing.
Okay.
I've heard about that. I actually read that piece reading.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it is something that is mind-boggling.
Okay. Okay.
I just tell Kenyans and the people who are involved in those things, there is so much money to be made by lawyers in this town. There's so many ways, honest ways of earning a living. So I'd suggest let's just try and be a moral, upright society.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, we're now taking a short break, but when we come back, we will of course take to Wakili, and we want to know about the sanity of just your mindset as a person making a decision to now reach them as the legal officers to help you now complete the process. What is always needed? Of course, we've talked about the process, but of course, what is needed, the details. They'll come to your house, do the assessment, everything, but are those details needed from you? How will the child survive? The school, maybe you're promising to take the kid, and so much more. All that coming to you after a short break. Welcome back to Morning Live, and I'll remind you of our social media pages on Instagram at Switch TV KE, on both Facebook and Twitter at Switch TV Kenya. We will sample your views as we go on the show. Remember, at 8 a.m. you'll meet Joyce Omondi, who will be coming in with Full Circle. A very interesting topic she always has. And also, this Saturday, that is from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. for the first time ever right here on Switch TV, we'll be having Sports Finale, where it will be a very, very interactive sports show that will be coming to you every Saturday from 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. Very interactive, from Skyping, for actually phone calls. You're going to have all those things coming in, and it's actually a show for the fans. Now, back to this adoption situation where I want to talk about how can you now go to the process of adopting. Of course, we've talked about the process itself, identifying, going to the lawyers, the court, but now the documentations that you have to provide to prove that indeed you're capable of actually making sure you can take care of the kid. And Bwana Wakili David Ohenga is with me in studio to elaborate more of that. And now, coming to you back into this, it's all about now the confidence, the legal corridors you'll have with you. Now, before the confidence, when you're told maybe to kind of bring out your financial capabilities, maybe the nitty-gritties, the details, tell us more about that.
The process, as it starts with the identification of a child. And like I said, you first go to the adoption agencies and societies for you to be, told that X, Y, Z are up for adoption.
Sure.
And then you will be given an opportunity to interact with them. So the process starts there. The social worker in the adoption agency, what they do, they will provide you with forms which you will fill, and they will ask for very simple basic questions. Where do you stay? Where do you work? Your age, your sexual orientation, for example, homosexual, all those things. They will ask you all those basic questions. Now, once you meet that criteria of those basic questions, then now they will put the child with you for that period of time. Now, as time, the 3 months, as those 3 months roll, they will continue doing assessment reports. They will pay the visits and everything. All that will form part of the documentation that will go to court.
And from you?
Now, from me individually, as you make now the application to court, you will have to provide basically your what we call an affidavit of means.
Okay.
What do you earn? What are your expenses? Do you have any other children somewhere that you're supporting? What comes to your pocket at the end of the day? Because you have to demonstrate ability to take care of that child and provide for that child.
Okay.
So all that together with the report by the social worker will, at the end of the day, you know, pile up to create, you know, evidence of your capabilities to provide. Okay. Usually what happens, apart from the affidavit of means, they will want to see how, even your mental status. Yeah, it will subject you to sometimes yes, you can't, exactly, yeah. They will subject you to some regular checkups if you have any communicable diseases, you know, HIV and all that. They will try as much as possible and know more about you before they can grant you.
And what of the kid? Will she or he undergo the tests also? Mental well-being?
Yes, medical, yes. That's all that is part of what the social worker is supposed to, information the social worker is supposed to gather. Okay. And
career history, your bank statements, how you've been married, maybe your, you know, those things, are they looked into?
Criminal records.
Criminal records. Oh, okay. Yeah. So you have to provide a certificate of good conduct.
Yes, because under the law here in Kenya right now, sexual offenders cannot.
Yeah, absolutely.
They cannot adopt. Yeah. If you have a record of a sexual offense, it will be you're basically just kicked out of the process. So they look at those small things. Bank record, yes. Employment record, yes. Criminal history, if any, they will look at that. Where you stay, you know. Small things like if you have another family, for example. If you have a wife, also the wife has to consent to you taking up the adoption and all that.
When you say kwanza
na
hapa kwamba kila kitu nimesema kwa hii report ni ya ukweli, blah blah blah, some people lie.
Yes.
So how do they know these people are lying? And maybe through the follow-ups, people lie when out here.
I know it happens, but sometimes, you know, those lies can only go so far.
Yeah.
You understand? Yeah, they can only go so far. I mean, if you're saying you live in the South B, and actually you're living in another X area, I mean, it's so easy to find out.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's so easy to find out.
Interesting.
So,
Now, let's talk about your expertise as a lawyer. Have you experienced any of these successful processes?
Yes, I have experienced some of these successful processes. Actually, I know of children who have been taken out of here and given out of the country and taken to Europe, America, and as far as I can tell, they're doing way better than if they were in that children's home. It is, like I said again, at the end of the day, adoption is one of those very noble things, and actually treated and taken the right way, it can propel a child's life to something that has become, because I know there are children who are even in football academies in Europe. Children who are actually, even from adoption, they have made it to some of the Ivy League universities outside there. Yeah.
Wow, so, interesting. Yeah. That is very powerful, because yes, the progress itself only just propels some sense of confidence also the parents. Now, when we also talk about this international, maybe let's say foreigners who come into the country, what's the process? Do you know? Because now as foreigners, it's even now, it means there's so much also to go through.
They, apart from the requirements that they have to meet locally here, in terms of they have to provide their addresses, they have to provide their jobs and everything, they also have to provide either an order from a court from where they stay, or a relevant government authority from their residential countries. Yes. So that also needs to support, you know, they will have to provide that.
Sure.
Yeah. To support all these other requirements that are here. But that is very key. They have to provide sometimes even a court order to certify that actually you live in that country. Whatever you have declared in an affidavit is actually the truth. And that you are fit, you know, by the laws of that country to adopt and bring in a child.
We've seen many situations also, as you mentioned, some parents are willing to give out their kids for adoption. But also, this one comes also with a process. So for a parent who wants to adopt, to now release the kid to a family that is able to take care of the kid, what's the process? Because I understand you can't just knock on a door and then you give out the kid. Yeah,
you can't do that. But usually what happens in that, when you apply to court, one of the things they will ask for, especially if the parents are alive and they're the ones who are they are giving out the child, they have to sign a consent. You know, they have to basically waive their parental responsibility rights to the person that is taking up the child. Yeah. So it's just a simple form of consent, and it is done.
Okay. Moserudi on Twitter is asking, can a bachelor adopt?
Yes, a bachelor can adopt, but the requirements
actually, I didn't finish the last words, because can a bachelor who is tired of, interesting, he mentioned people were cheating. Yes. Like, for example, this guy doesn't want to marry. Yes. Can he adopt?
Yeah, they can adopt.
Okay.
But the requirements are a bit stringent.
Okay.
One of the things that I know that you can't do is, if you're, let's say you are a male, you're a bachelor. That basically means you're a man.
Yeah, sure.
You cannot adopt a girl.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah. Okay. You might, for obvious reasons.
Of course, obvious reasons.
Yeah. You cannot adopt a girl. Secondly, at least your age.
Yeah.
You should be at least 25 years older. No, 21 years older than the child you're adopting.
Okay.
But not more than 65 years old.
Okay.
If you're an individual, you can. If you're over 65 years old, you can't adopt.
I think same question here from Jackie. Jackie is asking, can the kid fit to the regime? Because now, whatever she's trying to say here is basically, can the kid fit where she wasn't expected to fit? For example, the cultures, religion, my culture, the church where I go to, can they change everything?
Yeah. That's why I started, when we were talking about that issue, I said adoption usually is for, what happens is that children who are below the age of 10 or 14 are the ones who are adopted the most.
Okay.
Alafu in Kiswahili they say samaki unamkunja angali mbichi. So you know, at that age you can mold them into
kama angali mbichi.
Yes.
Nasema vile utakavyo, goodness. Anyway.
So samaki mkunja angali mbichi. So you can mold them from that age into to fit into what your expectations are.
I think we've talked about this, and Idris Su is asking, and now the medical condition of the child. What if you take a child who has some sophisticated medical condition? Will this be fair for you? I think the tests should be done.
Yeah, the test will be done, yes. But like again, I say, the decision to adopt a particular kid is actually your own decision.
Yes,
it is not forced on you.
It's true.
So if you look at a child, and because I know people who have adopted children, literally, who are they have long-term illnesses.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So with the long-term illness, by the way, can you maybe follow up on the genetic history of the family to know what happens here? Because also as a parent, you need to know how the parents are. They are the parents, actually.
As part of treatment, it is important that if the parents can be found, that is, you engage them so that you also understand, what could be the cause of this and how best to manage it going forward.
Queen on Twitter is asking how or what situations will make the court or the government snatch me that kid? Because now I think there's so many. I can actually even guess. Yeah, maybe you can give us some.
Yes, there are many. And actually those reasons apply across board, even for real parents. If you're responsible, you know, if you basically run away from your responsibilities of taking care of a child, the government has all the rights to take the child away from you. Yeah? If you're violent, there's so many things that can make the government actually come and say, you know what, you're not fit to be a parent, and take away the child.
Okay. Now, we talked about syndicates in this country, and as a lawyer who is so experienced, when you talk about trying to now fixing the loopholes, the porousness of these syndicates, yes, lawyers have been involved, even judges have been mentioned in this situation. What is your suggestion? Because I understand you, as a legal practitioner, you have your own solutions also.
Yeah, but I think, to me, I'm a believer in morality. If you can build your morality to an extent where you put another human being in a situation that is disadvantageous, then I find that is more of a personal problem, more than a legal problem, and that should be addressed from an introspective side rather than a legal framework. Absolutely. Because the law, the most it can do is just provide the regulation, but as to whether you decided to exploit those regulations or disregard those regulations, that's more of a personal thing. And actually in Kenya here, I think we have some of the best laws that any country can wish for, but we still find ourselves in situations that are not favorable.
A via via SMS, Dabutuchi Monani is asking, can a student adopt and he or she has the financial muscle?
a student adopted as a financial muscle, I think that will be a very long shot. Because the sustainability of that financial muscle also is something else. If your parents are the ones giving you the money, how sure are you when you clear university? They will continue giving you the money.
Okay, interesting. I'm even wondering, where is this financial muscle coming from as a student? Anyway, so it's a question you've been answered. So you've mentioned the loopholes and everything. And now, before you wind up on Ohenga, to the public out here, when you talk about adoption, some people feel like maybe family X was not able to give birth. That's why they had to opt for adoption. And I've seen so many families in this country, and even out of the country, have adopted other kids, but they still have their own kids. So yes, we have scenarios where if you're not able to give birth, you adopt. So what can you tell Kenyans out here that, you know, some people feel like adoption is kind of a long process, but I feel like there's still a child somewhere who needs this tender care, the love also, like any other child.
What I'll tell Kenyans is that, stemming from what you're saying about people not being able to conceive and all that, stigmatization is something that is it's torturous to those people. When you stigmatize a situation like that, which is completely sometimes out of the control of the person who's being stigmatized, it is unfair. And I think we as a society and we as Kenyans, we should make it a point in ourselves to support each other as much as we can. If someone is in that situation and you know, okay, they can't maybe conceive or have a child and they are ready to adopt, it shouldn't be in my place to start talking about why is she adopting, why can't she have the child or anything. It is a question of backing each other up and ensuring that at the end of the day, her interest of trying to have someone they can raise and the interest of the child who's looking for that care, you know, are married together, and you know, we build a better society.
Okay, absolutely. Of course, thank you so much, Bana David Ohenga, for coming. I feel like you've talked about so many things, and I'm proud of you, Bana. You've been doing a good job in the city, and thank you so much for coming. For those who want to adopt, it's an easy process. Wakili has mentioned everything. Just go. You can see him. You can, of course, just see any lawyer around, go through the process. Trust me, it's not a tedious process, and it'll make someone's kid or a kid somewhere very happy. And of course, before just we take a break, just to remind you about Switch TV. We have been nominated for the Kuza Awards. You can SMS the word Kuza to 15601. Kuza for free, actually, to 15601, and vote for Switch TV. You know what the channel has been doing, just taking over everything. So here's a time to appreciate Switch TV for what they've been doing. Of course, SMS the word Kuza for free to 15601. Of course, remember, tomorrow from 2 p.m. I'll be bringing you Sports Finale, and of course, as I mentioned earlier, it's a very interactive sports show, from Skype to phone calls, Twitter, Facebook, anywhere you want to get part of the show. Trust me, this will be very, very exciting. We're taking a short break. We'll actually be right back after a few. Yeah.